Lie to Deem. Here, hello everyone. Sometimes, survival depends on a single act of kindness, and mine came from my gentle, selfless boss. Yet, even as I escaped danger, CEO Tone was left searching for me, helpless, desperate, and lost in worry. But the cruelest truth was yet to come. The harm I suffered came from the very woman who raised him. Now, love is no longer just a feeling, it's a battle. And Tone must decide. Will he stand against his own blood to protect me?
Tuesday mornings were usually quiet for Tadeem, but this Tuesday was different. She woke up with a heavy heart and a faint bruise on her wrist, a reminder of the cruel words and actions from the day before. The person who hurt her wasn't a stranger, but the mother of the man she loved. Tone's mother had made it clear. Tadeem was not welcome in her son's life. Her voice was sharp, her accusations sharper. "A girl like you will only bring him misery," she said, and her hands had shoved Tadeem toward the door. It wasn't just the words that cut deep, but the look in the woman's eyes, as if Tadeem were something to be thrown away. With nowhere to go, Tadeem wandered the streets until she reached the small cafe where she worked part-time. Her boss, Ms. Thong, noticed her pale face and trembling hands. "What happened to you?" she asked gently. Tadeem tried to smile, but her voice cracked as she explained. Ms. Thong didn't hesitate. She offered Tadeem a place to stay in a small, quiet apartment above the cafe. "You need to rest and feel safe," she said. For the first time that day, Tadeem felt a flicker of warmth in her chest. Meanwhile, Tone was frantically searching for her. He called her phone again and again, drove through the streets they once walked together, even went to her old apartment. But it was empty. His mother's refusal to tell him anything only fueled his desperation. Days passed. Tone's heart ached every moment he couldn't find her. He didn't know about the cafe, about Ms. Thong, or the hidden apartment. All he knew was that Tadeem was out there somewhere, perhaps hurting, perhaps afraid, and he vowed, no matter the cost, he would find her, and this time, he would protect her from everyone, even if it meant standing against his own family. The first night in the small apartment above the cafe was restless for Tadeem. Even though Ms. Thong had prepared a warm blanket and a cup of tea, the memories kept flooding back. The sting of Tone's mother's voice, the cold emptiness in her eyes. Downstairs, the smell of freshly baked bread drifted up. Ms. Thong was already working. She called softly, "Come down when you're ready, dear." Tadeem forced a smile and went to help, losing herself in the familiar routine of serving customers, wiping tables, and pouring coffee. But danger has a way of finding the vulnerable. One evening, as Tadeem was closing the shop alone, two men appeared at the door. She recognized them instantly, the same men who had tried to trick her into getting into their car days earlier. They leaned against the doorframe, grinning in a way that made her skin crawl, still pretending. "You don't know us," one of them said. Before she could answer, a tall figure stepped out from the shadows. It was Ms. Thong's brother, Min, who often came by to check on his sister. Without a word, he placed himself between Tadeem and the strangers. His voice was calm, but firm. "You're leaving now." The men muttered something under their breath but eventually walked away, throwing her one last threatening look. Tadeem's knees felt weak. Min glanced at her and said simply, "You're safe now." Meanwhile, across the city, Tone's patience was breaking. He had met with private investigators, called every contact he knew, but still no sign of Tadeem. His friends urged him to move on, but he couldn't. The image of her smile, the sound of her laughter, haunted him every night. That evening, Tone stood on his balcony, looking at the city lights. His phone buzzed, an unknown number. He answered immediately. A familiar voice whispered, "Tone." Tone. The sound of her voice froze him in place. For a heartbeat, he wondered if he was dreaming. "Tadeem, where are you? Are you safe?" His words tumbled out, breathless, desperate. "I can't tell you," she whispered. "It's too dangerous." "What danger? Tell me, and I'll be there in minutes." Silence stretched on the line. He could hear her breathing, shaky, like she was fighting back tears. "Your mother. She said she would ruin me if I stayed with you. And there are people, men following me. I can't let you get dragged into this." His grip on the phone tightened. "Listen to me. Nothing matters more than you. I don't care what my mother says. I don't care who they are. I will protect you." "Tone, please." Her voice broke. "If they see you, they'll come after you too. I just needed to hear your voice once. I'm sorry, no. Don't hang up. Tell me where you are." The line went dead. Tone stood frozen, his heart pounding in the silence of the night. He replayed every word in his mind, searching for a clue. She had risked calling him, which meant she needed him, even if she wouldn't admit it. In a dim apartment above a small cafe, Tadeem sat on the bed, staring at the phone in her hands. Miss Thong entered quietly, holding a tray with tea. "Was that him?" she asked softly. Tadeem nodded. Her eyes glistened. "I miss him. But if I see him, everything will get worse, Ms." Thong sighed. "You can't hide forever. Sooner or later, love finds its way back." Far away, Tone made a decision. If Tadeem wouldn't tell him where she was, he would follow the shadows until he found her, even if it meant facing his own family's wrath. He would bring her home. The morning after the call, Tone barely touched his breakfast. His mind kept replaying every detail of Tadeem's voice, the faint echo in the background, the muffled sound of clinking cups. Somewhere in that brief conversation was a clue. He drove to the quietest parts of the city, searching for cafes and small shops that matched the sound. It was reckless, but his instincts told him she was near. That afternoon, luck or fate intervened. As Tone was parking his car by a narrow street, he spotted two men leaning against a lamppost, smoking. Their faces were familiar. He'd seen them once before, loitering outside a mall. The day Tadeem disappeared, when they noticed him staring, one of them muttered something and turned away. The other smirked, the kind of smirk that confirmed Tone was on the right track. He followed them at a distance. They walked for several blocks before stopping near a small cafe tucked between an old bookstore and a tailor shop. Through the glass window, Tone saw her. Tadeem was wiping a table, her hair tied back, her expression focused but tired. For a moment, he couldn't breathe. She looked the same, and yet not. There was a heaviness in her posture, a shadow in her eyes. But before he could step forward, Ms. Thong appeared beside her, saying something softly. Then, as if sensing danger, Tadeem glanced toward the window. Their eyes met. Her hands froze. The color drained from her face. The two men outside shifted, clearly watching. One reached for his phone. Tone realized with a jolt, if he went to her now, it could put her in even greater danger. He forced himself to turn away, his jaw tight. This wasn't the moment to act. He would need a plan, and he would need to outsmart whoever was keeping her trapped. But as he walked back to his car, One truth burned in his chest. He had found her. Life often tests the strength of our hearts in ways we do not expect. For Tadeem, the test came in the form of sacrifice, leaving the man she loved to protect him from danger. For Tone, the test was persistence, searching for her despite every obstacle, even the disapproval of his own family. Their journey teaches us that love is not simply about holding someone close. Sometimes it is about letting them go when you believe it will keep them safe. But it also shows that true love does not give up easily. It fights, it searches, it waits, even in the shadows. Courage takes many forms. For Tadeem, it was the quiet strength to endure loneliness and hardship. For Tone, it was the willingness to stand against fear and protect the one he loved, even at personal cost. Both forms of courage are equally powerful, for they are born from the same source, a heart that refuses to abandon what truly matters. We can learn from them that protection is not just about physical safety. It is about shielding someone's dignity, dreams, and sense of hope. The people we love need more than our presence. They need our commitment, our patience, and our belief in them. In the end, love that survives trials is love that grows deeper. It becomes unshakable because it has weathered storms and chosen, again and again, to remain. And perhaps the greatest lesson of all is this: when love is paired with courage, there is no force strong enough to break it. Tadeem, if you are reading this, know that I have never stopped searching for you. The city feels colder without you in it. I walk through the streets hoping to hear your voice, even if only in the echo of the wind. You once left to protect me, thinking it would keep me safe. But love is not safety. It is choosing to face danger together. I would rather walk through storms with you than live in sunlight without you. I know you are scared. I know you have suffered more than you let anyone see. But I also know the strength in you, the way you endure without breaking, the way you smile even when your heart is heavy. When I find you, I will not let go again. I will protect you from every cruel word, every shadow, every hand that tries to pull you away. Even if it means standing alone against the world, I will stand. Until that day, remember this: you are not forgotten, and you are not alone. My love follows you, even in the places I cannot go. Tone.